Welcome, fellow painters. I'm off to a spot that I found about 3 weeks ago now. I thought it'd make a good spot to paint. It has a nice beautiful tree submerged in the local stream here. You'll see it when I get there, but I'm looking forward to painting it. Let's hope it turns out well. Oh, here we are. The water level is a little bit higher than I thought it would be, which is better though, because now some of the log is submerged into the water itself. And there it is right there. This is kind of the scene I want to paint. The water's a nice challenge. It's a different bronzy green color, quite transparent too. So we'll see how I make out. Let's get started. So we'll start off with a sketch, just like I always do. This time placing a log in the lower left-hand side. I always do a rule of thirds kind of thing. It's just something instinctual I do when I'm out in the field. I'm bringing it up more diagonally, and it won't really divide the canvas in two, because you'll see later how I treat the water, how it brings it over top of the tree and over to the left-hand side. And I leave the space on the bottom right-hand side for all the reflections that you'll see. So that's my plan. And there was a log that was going through the water transparently underneath, but I decided in the end to leave it out. And it's a good time to mention that I am on Patreon. You can visit me at patreon.com, Michael King Art, and I offer a few different tiers. Appreciate it if you come check it out. Here I'm just laying in the darks of the bank, the back shore, and some shadows that I see in the transparent water. And I'm laying in a dark green first, and then a brighter green on top for the shoal that this log is up against. Then I move right into the water, doing a variety of tests, trying to get the color of that water right. It was a strange color, and it took me a while to get there. And I work with it quite a bit in this painting to get it right, to get that translucency in there. And what I'm leaving out there on the right hand side are the reflections that I see that I'm going to be putting a lighter value, kind of gray-blue into. And right now I'm just trying to block in as much as I can. And this is the water in the shadows. Blocking as much as I can, get rid of the white of the board, and then I can really adjust the values, because that's what this video is all about, is values. And I always understate values first. I never put in the value at the beginning that's going to be perfectly. I've never acquired that skill. Some people have it, but I don't. But I always get there in the end, because I'd rather build up to it and get it right than continually be wrong trying to get it in perfectly at the beginning and be frustrated. Painting is a process. Nothing's ever perfect. Gotta do it once, twice, 3 times. Fine, keep on doing it. Here I'm putting in the log. I see some gray violets in there. Throughout, I try to put in the shape of those violets. I add a little bit of green into that violet, and I put in the shapes that I see in the log. So it's about mixing the right value, it's in the right temperature, whatever color it is, and I put in that shape. And I bring that green into that log as well. A little bit more ochre, bring it a little bit to life. Kind of the sun kissing the edge there. And these are the shapes I see at the time, and that's what I paint. Nothing more, nothing less. Trying to get that front side of that log in. It's a little bit lighter than the rest. And the shadow on that side of that log there. Deep in that fork and along the bottom edge. Trying to get that deep dark shadow. Again, it's right value, right shape, put it in. And you'll notice a lot of those values in that log are very, very close. If you squint, right now the only thing that stands out is kind of the yellow on the side, so they're very close in values. And this is intentional. I want to create an interest in the log with temperature shifting, and I think I've achieved that. You can think of it as color, but I believe it's more temperature. Right, the yellow ochre is warmer than the violet is warmer than the green, etc. A little bit of light blue on top to get the sense of the sky reflecting on that log. Then moving into the back, I see the violets of the trees. They're quite red. And I lighten it up a bit, but I go in later to darken it, I believe. And who knows, in the studio I still might darken it, I haven't decided. A little bit lighter, a little bit more chroma in that violet. I will be covering that a lot with a lot of the branches. Here you see me wiping off some excess paint. I put it on quite wet, and a new paint wouldn't go on very well, so I just put the paper towel on it and dabbed it off. Establishing those darks again. There's this one log that comes off the riverbank and up to the left. And I thought that'd be a good addition as it kind of leads the eye in from the top. But in retrospect, I don't think it does what I want it to. So that's probably another change that I will be doing in the studio to alter this piece. And if I do make changes to this piece, I'll make sure to record it and post it here as well. And if I do, the link will be in the top left-hand corner for you to see it. Now there are all these trees over there covering that bank, so I try to put those in. Trying to soften some edges. Now I want to get a little bit lighter with that green grass there, just to get the contrast. Trying to scratch some grasses in, trying to give that textural feel. And then I go into the long round brush, throwing in some darks. And that's pretty much why I put the lighter green in there. I wanted that contrast between all these different bushes that are growing there, more or less. And I wanted to see them against the lighter value. A little bit different temperature there. Gives a bit of variety. Gives a little bit of the bush has a little bit of light on it. A little more scratching in the back. Trying to tempt the values on those logs, and then come back to the main log, put in some lighter values where the sun starts hitting it. Not so much the sun, the light. The sun I don't think was ever really directly in this log. Some light on the top edges, and now I go into the reflections. And to see the reflections, you got to really focus on it. It's easy to see in the photograph on the bottom left because it's a photograph. But when you're there at the scene, it's quite difficult. So you really have to concentrate on what you see. And I kind of differentiate it between not just the sky holes that I see that I'm painting, but kind of the foliage that is reflecting, and that kind of gives me a better idea of how and why the shapes are there. And I bring in some waterworks touching that log, adjusting the bank, warming it up a little bit. Warming it up helps bring it to life, I find. Now, within those reflections, I'm trying to bring the idea of foliage passing through the reflections. Give it a little more life. And I do have a set value there, but you'll see me brighten it up because it is just a single value, and it should be brighter as it approaches the log and darker as it gets farther away from the log. And these are nice reflections that I just put in that curving motion, and that's kind of the reflection of the light off the log into the water. I love these long round brushes. Great for a sense of detail without adding a lot of detail. Changing the temperature again, changing the value as well. Trying to get a little bit deeper darks in there, get a sense of form. Now warming it up quite a bit in that log with a pinky violet, I guess. Adding some brushes that are growing in that log. Dead branches, more or less, right? And even now, a lot of that log is the same value, but it has a lot of interest because of the temperature shifting. And if you've painted for a long time and have struggled with stuff like this, that's pretty much the key. Temperature shifting in the same value. Gotta try it. Works like a charm. A little more emphasis on that ochre in that log. Now here you see me putting the lighter parts of the reflection in, and you can see now it starts to become more of a reflection, right? More of the dappled light that you get to get on the water. And I keep playing with that. You'll see me go over it quite a bit. Darken areas, lighten areas. Now I add that light to that log to help punch it out, but it was a bit much. I'll go back and I will adjust that. It's just a little bit too bright. Some other branches coming off that log, just giving a sense of entanglement. You know how logs are when they've been sitting a long time. Little bit of warmth in that water in the foreground. Putting in a mass of a tree that I see on the left there. I found myself going off that edge a little bit too much, so it needed a little something. And now I'm adjusting that riverbank again. I just want to get a sense of a riverbank. I don't need it perfect, but it just wasn't reading right for me at the time. Adding some darks in that water. Just give us. I'm trying to put a sense of that log there. I leave some of it. I take some of it out. But it wasn't my focus of the painting itself, the reflections were. And this is a good technique too. Just start wiping off with a little bit of the paper towel, and you get a luminance coming through because that oil paint still stays, but the white from the background comes out a little bit more. So you get a sense of luminance you'd never get if you tried to mix that with pigment. A little more green value in that water. Just a sense of variation, right? It's all the same value, shifting the temperatures. A little more darks in those brushes on the left. Trying to get a sense of depth, overlapping different directions as well. It's quite chaotic, so it's an arbitrary pattern. You can't always stick to a sense of everything moving off to the right or everything vertical. Things have to move left, right, up, down, crossing over each other. Lights, darks, cools, warms. And it just needs to read as a chaotic mass of brush more than anything, because the focus of this is part of the log, but it's mostly just a reflection. And you see her there going to reflection again, just adding a little more white. It's not pure white though, it's a lighter value of that blue with a little bit of yellow in it, and so it gives an accentuation of the light. You can see I added some pinks in. I like putting pinks into my plein air pieces. They really seems to give a sense of life. Just don't overdo it. A little more paper toweling, a little more scratching. Now I keep playing with this water here on the left by the log, as I was trying to get this sense of luminance in there. It does come through eventually, but just not yet. Throwing in the dark again. There you go, a little bit lighter there, starting to come through. Looks like I warmed up that value a little bit again by that log. Throwing in some more darks, scratching some stuff in, covering it up with paint, but leaving some of those scratches in gives a sense of interest. A little more darks. Now just scraping with an old brush that I have that's so stiff that it takes off paint instead of putting on paint. And again, that's like the paper towel technique, where it leaves some paint on, but most of it off, giving a sense of luminance. Just in that ochre, I found the chroma a little bit too much. Keep on working that water. I gotta get it right. I gotta get that sense of luminance by that log. A few scrapes, get a sense of gnarly bark. A few dibs and dabs for broken branches here and there. And you can see it's starting to come together, but it's still missing something, and that's coming. And it all comes down to values. Like most of that log is still the same value, just a lot of temperature shifts within it. Playing with that water again, bringing the green, put a little more life into that, but you'll still see me adjust that coming up in a bit. A little more green on the right hand side too. And so what I did with that green is I had a little more chrome in it, but it's also darker than the value that was there. Now adding the water where it's catching up to the log. Some deep violets, some greens going into that log, working it quite a bit. Some dirty blues. Nice value that I put down by the log in the water, getting some deep darks in that log now. And then that's the final piece de resistance for me, is that the light colored yellow on top, and it helps give a sense of light and depth and shape to that form. So if it wasn't for that value, it would pretty much be sunk into the bank. And putting that light value on top of the log helps brings it forward a little bit more. And there I sign it. Well, overall, a great day of painting. Eventually the sun came out and I got to see some horses up close. What more can you ask for? Cheers. So I want to thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If I've earned it, subscribe. And if you like, hit that bell. Don't forget to look me up on Patreon at patreon.com/MichaelKingArt.